My parents called CPS on me for raising their kids since I was 13, claiming I overstepped boundaries and stole their chance to parent. When I begged them to think of Jamie and Katie, Mom smiled and said, "This doesn't end until one of us gives up. I've got nothing left to lose." I just stared at her. Prat 3. I'd made sandwiches for Jamie and Katie, kept them calm, told them stories until Grandma could fly in from Florida. But Aunt Helen's version painted me as controlling, unable to accept support. Just like now. Mom's Facebook campaign gained momentum hourly. Her post about healing our family collected 147 likes and dozens of supportive comments. When I tried responding with facts, explaining the years of neglect, my comment was screenshot and reported for harassment. Facebook suspended my account within hours. The lawyer I'd consulted sent a formal letter to my parents' attorney. Their response came swiftly. My daily texts checking on Jamie and Katie were being documented as a harassment campaign against a family trying to reunify. Every concerned message became evidence of my inability to respect boundaries. Dad still controlled the kids' health insurance through his employer. When Jamie's ADHD medication ran low, I called in the refill only to have it denied. Dad's insurance wouldn't approve it without his explicit consent. He texted me his terms: "Stop this nonsense," admit I'd overreached, and he'd approve the medication. Jamie's prescription would expire in 3 days. I spent 6 hours at the pharmacy trying to navigate insurance overrides and prior authorizations. Exhaustion pulled at my eyelids when I jerked awake, crying from a stress dream, still in the pharmacy waiting area. The pharmacist exchanged worried glances with her colleague. I saw her type something into the computer. A note about potential substance abuse, probably. Sarah had been my best friend since middle school. She'd watched me raise Jamie and Katie, brought groceries when money was tight, held me while I cried from exhaustion. But when she met me for coffee, her hands wrapped around her mug like a shield. Her husband had concerns. If I continued this fight, if I kept challenging parents' rights, they couldn't let me babysit their kids anymore. The liability was too high, the association too risky. She cried as she said it, but she said it anyway. The neighborhood whispers started subtly. Conversations that stopped when I walked by, eyes that followed me to the mailbox. Then someone sent me a screenshot from our local Facebook group. Anyone else worried about the Theo situation? The post had 89 comments, neighbors discussing my mental state, my fitness as a caregiver, whether someone should do something. Mom claimed she'd attended Jamie's science fair 2 months ago. She posted photos as proof, her arm around Jamie in the gymnasium, but the timestamp was wrong. The photos were from the previous year's fair. The same week she'd posted Vegas trip photos, cocktails by the pool, while Jamie presented his project on renewable energy to empty chairs. My co-worker Brad mentioned needing help with his taxes. Mom had offered to help through her new financial consulting business. She'd explained how he could write off his entire home office, maybe even his car. Classic MLM tax fraud disguised as expertise. When I proved Mom had lied about the science fair, showing the date discrepancy, it revealed an uncomfortable truth. I'd missed it to working a double shift to cover Katie's dance costumes. Jamie's quiet voice cut through my vindication. "At least you told me why you couldn't come." Small victories felt hollow. Jamie's teacher agreed to write a support letter for our case. I celebrated with a glass of wine that evening, the first alcohol I'd had in months. Through the kitchen window, I saw my neighbor's phone camera pointed at me. By morning, there would be documentation of my drinking problem. Mom's final text that week was short but clear. "This doesn't end until one of us gives up. I've got nothing left to lose." She was wrong about having nothing to lose. But she was right about one thing: this wouldn't end until someone gave up, and I'd raised 2 kids from diapers to diplomas. I'd survived on 3 hours of sleep and ramen noodles. I'd given up my childhood so they could have theirs. I didn't know how to give up. The following week, Dad showed up at Katie's dance studio with someone new. My co-worker Melissa walked through the door holding his hand, wearing a sundress that matched Katie's leotard. She crouched down to Katie's level, and pulled out a worn copy of Junie B. Jones from her purse. Katie's eyes lit up as Melissa flipped to a dog-eared page and began discussing their favorite parts. I watched from the parent viewing area as Melissa braided Katie's hair before class, using the exact technique I taught Katie last year. Dad stood behind them, recording everything on his phone. The other parents glanced between us, clearly aware of the custody situation from neighborhood gossip. After class, Katie ran to me first, then hesitated when she saw Dad waiting. Melissa handed her a new Junie B. Jones book, still in its wrapper. Katie clutched it to her chest, looking between all 3 adults with confusion clouding her features. That night, I found myself scrolling through old text messages, searching for anything that might help my case. Instead, I discovered conversations I'd forgotten about 3 years ago. I told Mom I'd handled bedtime so she could rest. She thanked me profusely. Now her lawyer would argue I'd systematically excluded her from parenting duties. My phone buzzed with a notification from an unknown number. Someone had forwarded me a screenshot from a group chat I wasn't part of. My old text to a friend from sophomore year filled the screen. "Sometimes I wish I could just be a normal teenager." The message was dated 2 weeks after I'd started working nights to pay for Jamie's therapy. Below it, someone had added commentary about my resentment toward my siblings. The preliminary custody hearing arrived faster than expected. Katie sat in the judge's chambers for her interview, while we waited outside. When she emerged, her face was red and puffy. The court advocate whispered something to the judge, who made notes on her legal pad. Later, the transcript revealed Katie's innocent words twisted into weapons. She'd mentioned how, "I used to lock the door when Mommy tried to come in at night." She didn't understand. She was describing the nights Mom stumbled home hammered, demanding to see the kids at 2 a.m. Katie just remembered me saying, "Mommy was sick and needed to sleep."